Have you ever wondered why the rich get richer and others don't? Could it be that a small percentage of the population pay others to find, study, and execute on legal loopholes that exist with our financial life and make it easier for them to prosper? The answer is a resounding yes. This is the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. John has spent a lifetime researching and mastering the financial loopholes that he believes should be available to everyone. Join us as we explore different strategies that help you get farther faster towards building and enjoying a prosperous retirement.
Hello and welcome to the Secrets of the Wealthy with John Mintz. John, how are you?
Great as always. Thanks, Eric, for asking.
Absolutely. I'm really excited. For those of you that are joining us on this podcast, maybe this is your first one. This is John's second podcast. The first one was his inaugural podcast where you get to know a little bit about his history, how he entered financial services, and some personal questions we get into as well. So it's a great one to go back and listen to. Today, we're going to be talking about kind of what it looks like to work with him and his team, kind of the steps and so on and so forth. One of the things that I know that John does is he works with a wide variety of people. And I want to ask him a couple questions before we dive into really getting into what it looks like from beginning to end to work with him. I want to ask him a couple other questions. So, John, you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. So right now, I mean, we've just come out of 2020, which everybody knows was a tough year for many, many different reasons. Everybody's very hopeful for 2021. We've had a presidency change. I mean, there's so many different things. But in your industry, with your work that you do, what are some of the most common scenarios you're seeing right now that people are bringing you?
Eric, I think there is a lot. 2020 was tough in so many different ways. And, there is some optimism going into this year, but, there's still a lot of fear out there as well. Mm-hmm. There'll be 10,000 plus baby boomers retiring daily for the next 2 decades.
That's crazy.
As they approach retirement, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of unknowns. Mm-hmm. We feel like it's our responsibility to help them, make sure that they don't run out of money in retirement. Believe it or not, it's a fact that retirees fear running out of money in retirement more than they fear death. Mm-hmm. A pretty stark statistic, but it's our goal to make sure that that does not ever happen to anyone on our watch, and then make sure that they don't feel like they're a burden to their children down the road as well. But probably the most common scenario we're seeing day in and day out is centered around taxes and tax planning, specifically how to reduce taxes, during retirement.
So my next question would be, people can really find help for that anywhere. In fact, they can find it online now. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's robot advisors and things like that. So why should somebody come to you instead?
We have a new website that's been under construction for quite some time, and it's actually going to be released later this month. We're really excited about it. But on the front page of that website, in really bright, bold letters, capital letters, it says, "Welcome to the family." Mm-hmm. And then it goes on to say that our mission is to bring prosperity and blessings to those that we serve by providing education, which we talked about in the last podcast, understanding, and most importantly, peace of mind, as it relates to their financial goals and their dreams. We don't offer products like a robot advisor would. Mm-hmm. We deliver customized strategies and solutions, and we take the time to educate our clients. We have multiple meetings with them, and we get to know them, and we get to know their family, and we just sincerely care. I had this pastor that was referred to me a number of years ago, actually referred to me by another pastor, believe it or not. He was in a pretty tough position. He was in a pretty tough financial position when he came to me. And he said, "John, I just need help. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it." We went down the path of giving him, financial guidance, and he was very coachable. And he just had this huge desire to just become a better master of his money. Well, fast forward, not only has he accomplished that, but way more importantly, what he's most proud of now is that he's passed his wisdom on to his children, all of them. and they're all adults now, and they're all clients, by the way, as well.
Nice.
And they're just so far ahead of the game now because of his desire to learn and get better. And now, so he's left a legacy now for what generations to come because of his one choice.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean by that's the best way I could explain how we're different.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. The relationship, I think, is one of the most important pieces. But let's remove the relationship piece from the answer. And why don't you tell me a little bit about how you would be different than a big box retail financial planner? Now, there's a lot of large companies out there, and relationship is key. But besides that, how are you different?
Well, I don't have enough time to tell you all the ways we're different.
Okay.
It's really different. For starters, we answer the phone. How often do you call a company and get lost in what I like to call voicemail infinite Groundhog Day? You know, the movie Groundhog Day, where the same day is happening over and over and over again. That's what it feels like sometimes when you call these guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We know because we have to call them on behalf of our clients sometimes. Yep. And spend hours, I'm not exaggerating, just trying to get somebody on the phone. Many of the big box planners, they don't take the time or even have the time to really get to know your entire situation. You may come into one of those places and say you want a Roth IRA, for example, but based on your goals and your income and the many, many other factors at play, that may not actually be the best thing for you, but they'll give it to you. We take the time to get to know everything about your financial situation so we can provide the most accurate recommendations for you. Like the example I use when somebody's sitting in front of me asking me this question, I say, if you went to your general physician, he took a look at you and said, I don't like what I'm seeing with your heart here. I'm going to send you to a heart specialist, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
I would refer to the big box guys as the general physician and refer to us as the specialist. We do not provide cookie cutter plans in any way, shape, or form.
No, that's beautiful. Now, let's go through what it looks like to engage you and your team. A lot of people are going to be listening to this podcast. It is nationwide. I know that you have the ability to work in multiple states. We're not going to take the time to list all those, but for those that will be reaching out to you, you'll be able to talk to them about it. So let's say somebody does listen to this and they do reach out. So I've decided to meet with you. What do I expect?
Yeah, well, for starters, our new website is there's one whole section, one whole page that's completely dedicated to this. And it'll do a better job than what I'm going to do on the podcast today, explain it. But the first call, you reach out and my staff is going to ask you a few initial questions and then get you scheduled for our first phone appointment, which I like to call my fit meeting. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is on this call, we're going to spend some time chatting and getting to know each other. It's usually a short call, but we just want to make sure our belief systems are similar. Mm-hmm. There's no decisions made on this call. And if we both decide that we're a good fit by me asking them questions and them asking me questions, then we schedule the next appointment where we dive deeper, into their financial situation.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about that. What do you mean by dive deeper into their financial situation?
Yeah. Well, the next appointment is either in person or virtual. Mm-hmm. I used to say it would be in person, right? But these days, sometimes folks are more comfortable with virtual for obvious reasons. But this is known as what we call our discovery meeting. And during this meeting, we'll take a detailed look at your finances, and we'll look at things such as income, both pre-retirement and post-retirement, assets and the growth of those and how they're balanced or unbalanced according to risk and protection. And the one that's often missed is taxation. Mm-hmm. We'll look at expenses and the inflation of those. That alone can make or break someone's retirement sometimes. We'll look at insurance. We'll look at medical cost, which is one of the largest expenses that retirees have in their retirement. It's overlooked. We'll look at your dream list. For whatever reason, planners don't plan to help individuals fulfill their dreams in retirement. I don't understand that. I mean, why do we work 40, 50, 60 hours a week for 40 years and to not be able to fulfill our dream retirement? We'll look at long-term care and everything in between. Again, no decisions are made at this point. It's really us just really getting to know our clients and building a relationship with them.
Yeah. So during that meeting, what what do I need to bring as your client or somebody who's going to look to work with you? What information should I be prepared to bring, and how do I know what I'm supposed to bring?
Okay. Well, what you won't bring is any personal or confidential information, usually. And then sometimes folks want to reveal more quicker, but we don't require it. Social security numbers and, account numbers, those types of things. We don't collect any of that information this early in the game.
Oh, okay.
However, we have found that the more specific information that folks can provide us when we're getting into their actual financial information and their personal situation, the more specific individualized planning that we can do for them. So we kind of move at whatever speed they're comfortable with, but accurate planning obviously breeds accurate results, meaning that at some point in time, we're going to want to get really specific so that we dose out the correct prescription for the problem that exists, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of goes back to that doctor scenario, right? Whenever I go into the doctor, it's like, okay, my shoulder hurts. Well, where does it hurt? Well, it's my shoulder. Okay, well, then he wants to find my pain points, right? He wants to kind of drill down, not with a drill, but okay, let's figure out exactly where you're hurting so we can have a better idea. And then we're going to take a closer look, maybe with some x-rays and so on and so forth. So I love that that's kind of what you're talking about. You're finding out what are the good things that are going on, what are the pain points that are going on, and then you can start to utilize that deeper dive that you're talking about. So once we've had this conversation, what happens then?
By the way, that was a great way to explain that you don't walk in the doctor and say, my knee hurts, you'll do surgery, right? And he's going to do some exams, and he's going to do some x-rays and maybe an MRI, and he's going to ask you a lot of questions, same kind of thing. That's right. From there, we move into what I like to call the fun meeting. Yeah, and spell it F-U-N. Yes, fun meeting.
All right.
It's known as our strategy meeting, but it's fun for me, and it's always fun for them because we usually schedule that meeting 2 to 3 weeks out after the discovery meeting so that I can spend the time that I need to spend, which is a lot, researching and planning and building the most optimal strategies and plans for you. And again, I don't have 1 or 2 products that I put everyone into, right? So I'm going to spend whatever time is necessary to find the most optimal way to get more with less and apply that to their specific situation. And this plan is usually centered around 3 things. And we do cover other things as well, but these are usually the 3 that are centered around, which is 1, reduced taxation, and 2, protected income, meaning that whatever lifestyle you want to live, we make sure that money is protected and always going to be there. And then 3, protection against market volatility. There's a lot of myths in my world, but one of those is that you have to sacrifice growth to obtain security and protection. And it's just really not true. When we meet again, then at that point, they're going to see a customized, specialized, personalized plan that achieves the goals that they have for themselves and their money and their retirement and their family, and then some areas they probably have overlooked as well. So this is where you and I, them and I, will see the future, so to speak. Kind of like a before and after, right? Going to the doctor again, and he says, okay, this was your knee. I had ACL reconstruction 3 years ago. And he says, okay, John, here's the pictures of your knee when I went in. It was shredded 98%. And then here's the picture of it when I was done. And so that's the same kind of thing we do. We show before and after pictures as well, because we want them to see where they're going, and we want them to be able to hold us accountable for it. So we believe if we build a really solid plan it's going to stand up to the absolute worst case scenarios, and then we educate them to the point that they fully understand what we're going to do and why, we don't really need to try to convince them to do anything at that point. They should be telling us what to do at this point. And this is where we really shine. It's what I like to call our VIP treatment. You remember those big box planners again we mentioned before? What do? Well, they send you an application link, and they send you on your way. Okay, you can take it from here. We do the exact opposite. We collect all their information. We complete everything. We submit their applications for them. My operations director, which I mentioned last podcast, Leah, runs this department, and her attention to detail is immaculate. She takes her time, and she makes sure that everyone feels very comfortable and that they feel like that they're getting a white glove treatment, because they do.
Yeah, that is awesome. All right. I'm working with you, right? That's it. I've had this meeting, the fun meeting's done. We've got a future. It's looking good. I'm liking what I'm seeing, but I know that's not the end, because obviously, like you said, the big box will just point you in a direction and encourage you to go where you walk alongside your client. So what does it look like after we've had that meeting and we've got the plan in place?
Oh, what happens a year later? A lot. And throughout the year, for starters, we provide ongoing service, whether that be through their annual review or all of life's changes in between. I mean, we really, unlike a lot of planners, we actually encourage our clients to call us when there is a major life change, because life happens. We set a plan and a course, a pathway, but then life happens and we've got to adjust. So additionally, all of our clients have access to updates from this podcast, financial articles that we are sending out on a very frequent basis, that both weekly and monthly basis, related to optimization of Social Security, Medicare, long-term care, estate planning, tax planning, all of that. I may not be able to talk to them all the time, but I'm always in front of them and educating them, so they can look forward to that throughout the year, as well as their reviews on an annual basis, or more often if needed.
Yeah. Now, I know that everybody listening might have their own idea of what a life change or a major life change would be. Can you give us some parameters? What do you mean by that?
We want our clients to let us know if they change jobs, they want to buy a house, they're having a baby, a grandbaby, anything that could affect them financially. We want to be there to be their guide and educate them along the way. So as an example, I had this couple get referred to me. I had 7 or 8 years ago now, they referred to me, which is the way a lot of folks come to me, of course. And we began teaching them, and they were so coachable, and they had such desire to be successful as a couple. So they did everything I told them. They had gotten to the point where they were saving close to 20% of their income on an ongoing basis, right? And they were killing it and doing great. Well, then life happened. They were traveling all over the world, just having the time of their lives with a couple. They said, okay, we've had our fun. Let's start a family. And I get this call. They said, John, we've been trying to have a baby for a while, and it's just not happening. Can we have a conversation with you about some other options? And they told me one of the options was a surrogate mother. Well, I didn't know much about that. Come to find out, it's $200,000 to $300,000.
Holy cow!
A lot of money. Fortunately, they had the money saved, and so we began talking about it, and what would that do to their future if we had to pull that out of their assets. And finally, I think at the end of the call, I said, you know what? I think this is one of those things that's such a huge decision. I think you just ought to push pause on this, and let's just take a little time just to think about this, pray about it, and do what we need to do. Well, what do you think happened, right? Because they made a decision to let go of it and relax. She gets pregnant.
There you go.
Right? And it happens a lot, I think. But it was just a great end of the story. And by the way, they're now pregnant with their second child. So it was just beautiful. And they had this beautiful daughter. It's just a beautiful story.
Yeah.
About that they were, they called us and we were able to just have some positive impact in some way, if nothing else, just to slow them down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we mean by major life changes.
Yeah, let's clarify something for the audience. If you choose to work with John, it does not mean that you're going to get pregnant if you take his advice. I just want to clarify that. For those of us who have grandchildren now, we don't want new children. My wife would look at me a little crazy if we got pregnant now, John. I just want to make sure you know that.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
I don't want to scare anybody off, right?
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. Anyway, so that's fantastic. I mean, I love the fact that you're open to that. I love the fact that you are encouraging your clients to be reaching out. I know that you and I in private conversations have spoken about a lot of the advisors that are out there when the pandemic hit and when 08 and 09 happened and, 2001, 2002, they were hiding under their desk, right? They weren't taking calls because they were busy worrying about their entire business, so on and so forth. The proactive ones were reaching out to their clients, and I know that that's what you also do. So I want to make sure that I mention that because that was something that was very important to you in a previous conversation.
Yeah.
Is there anything I haven't asked you yet that I should have asked you, or is there something else that you should know or that you want to express to the audience that you haven't mentioned yet?
I took this for granted for a number of years. I do workshops, teaching educational workshops a lot. In fact, I have one in 2 weeks. One of the things I started including in that workshop is what people should not expect when they come to meet with us, because there's a lot of myths about these meetings, or maybe they're rightfully so with other firms. I don't know, but what they should not expect when they come to meet with us is they should not expect to be intimidated. They should not expect to be made to feel dumb or like they've made bad decisions, or they shouldn't expect to be pressured. And they need to leave their checkbooks at home because there's no fee to meet with me. If you recall from our first podcast, my goal is to educate and to coach. And I don't just say it, I really mean it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that they know not just what to expect, but what not to expect as well.
Yeah, 100%. Now, this is the second time that you've mentioned myths because we know that the industry is riddled with them, right? You get so much different news from so many different sources as a consumer, you don't know what to believe. So I'm going to challenge you. I'm throwing down the gauntlet right now, John. On a future podcast, I would love for you to dedicate one podcast to debunking myths. Would you do that for me?
Awesome. I'd love to. That'd be fun.
I think that would be a great podcast. So we will obviously make sure that we announce on a previous podcast when that next podcast would come out that he's going to be doing that. So you can tune into that, listeners, because that'll be fantastic and answer a lot of questions. And if you have questions or concerns or things that you've heard that you just would like debunked before then, email him. We'll give out some contact information here at the end, but I know that he'd be more than willing to answer those emails and include your question in a future podcast because that's all part of the educational component that John brings to the table. John, this has been absolutely fantastic. I do have one other question I'd like to ask before we part today. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. So right now, and we're recording this in the middle of March of 2021, what is the hot topic your clients are most concerned about right now?
Yeah, but it is March. That in and of itself relates to tax time. But even if it was October, it wouldn't matter. If you go ask 10 strangers on the street, and I really mean this when I say this, if you just take 10 random people and ask them if they think taxes are going up or down in the next 10 to 20 years, you will not find one that will say anything but up.
Correct.
In fact, I've done this for the last 3 to 5 years now, and I still haven't found one. They'll all answer the same way. Folks are worried and they're downright scared right now about how much and how quickly taxes are going to rise and the damage that it could inflict on their retirement plans. The question I'd like to leave folks with today is, do you want the government's plan for your retirement or do you want your own plan? Meaning that most advisors or financial services companies are going to miss this very important part of planning. And it's a mathematical certainty that taxes have to rise. I'll prove that in a future podcast. But Learned Hand, he was an American judge and a judicial philosopher. And he said it like this. He said, there are two systems of taxation in our country. One for the informed and one for the uninformed. And, our next show, I'll dive into this subject and give folks some hope as it pertains to reducing or even eliminating taxes in retirement through proper tax planning. And like I always say, hey, where there's hope, there's great power.
Absolutely. John, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
And our last thank you, of course, goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when John comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at the Secrets of the Wealthy, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Secrets of the Wealthy podcast with John Mintz. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of John Mintz. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.